One of the most important things we can strive for as musicians is just to be able to sit and play by ourselves, completely alone, no bass player, no drummer, and make genuine music in its own right. Now, something I've got a lot of enjoyment from is putting together these solo blues pieces you often see on my channel. Now, it can be a kind of complicated thing to do, but in this video, I want to put in the most simple way possible, in just 3 steps, how you can get into this style of playing. We'll look at chords, licks, and then how to play the changes, and hopefully we'll end up with something like this. So let's start by getting the chords in place. Now this is of course an A bar chord. Take the little finger off, it becomes an A7, and let's just zone in on these 3 strings, the D, G and B strings, so we can play them just on their own like this. And from here, let's play a little hammer on with the 2nd finger on the G string. Gives us a little bit of movement from the minor to major 3rd for a kind of bluesier feel. So that's the first part. Then from there, we're going to come up to the 7th fret and play another bar on those same 3 strings, giving us a D chord. So we're coming from A7 to D, so it's like this, up to this, but just these 3 strings. And then back again with that little hammer on again. And we can keep alternating between these 2, giving us a great blues rhythm, which kind of always works. And then when the progression moves up to the 4th chord of D, here at the 10th fret, we can do exactly the same again. And again at the 12th fret for the 5th chord of E. So we've got this technique we can use on all 3 chords. Let's play through the 12 bar progression using this approach. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then let's look at how we can add some licks around these chords, and we're going to focus on something I call the primary pentatonic box. So 5 and 7 on the D string, and 5 and 7 on the G string, a little 4-note box. So G, A, C and D, these notes are from the A minor pentatonic, which works great to create a really dark bluesy sound over these A major chords. Immediately hear that, right? So what we could do, just for a really simple lick to start off, twice at the 7th fret on the G string here, and then pull off to 5, and then 7 on the D, 5 on the D, and then resolving back to this root note of A here at 7 on the D. So it's really just 2 on the first note, then down the scale, and then resolving to the root note. Give it the rhythm. Nice and simple. Then what we can do to make that slightly more bluesy is just outside of this box, we've got this E flat here, which is the blue note in the key of A minor. So let's just slide off that each time we come into this D note at the 7th fret there. Gives it a real extra blues flavour. So that's our lick. We can play that and then into the chords. And it's really starting to take shape already. Then to give us just a little bit of variation, let's just mix up the very end of this lick. So instead of coming from here straight into resolve on this root note of A, let's get to here and then roll over to the 5th fret on the G string, little bend up, and then resolve down. So we're adding one more note in, this note here, before we resolve down. So the bass lick was, and then we've got this varied version, like so. And that just gives us that little bit of mixing it up as we're soloing. So let's put these licks with the chords. really starting to sound like music now. Okay, now we've got the basic concept in place, we need to think about how we outline the changes through the blues progression. So with this lick we've got, which always ends on this root note of A, that's great when we're on the A chord, but when we move up to D, it doesn't really give us any sense that we've gone anywhere. So we really need to be outlining these changes, and we're going to do that using a concept called shell voicing. That's when we just play two notes together which kind of indicate the chords changing. So if we just take from the A7 chord these two notes on the D and G strings, a G and a C sharp, the 7th and the 3rd, these notes in themselves kind of give us the quality of that A7 chord. But what's great about this, if we come down 1 fret with those, we get an F sharp and a C, which are the 3rd and the 7th of a D7 chord. So if you imagine this D7 chord here, it's just like a C7, but up 2 frets there, we've got 4 on the D string, 5 on the G string. So we've come from these two notes from the A7 chord down to these two notes from the D7 chord. So just that 1 fret move down gives us that sense of it changing. Then what we can do is bolt this little movement onto the end of a lick to really spell out that a chord change is happening, maybe like this. You really get that sense of we've come from here, now into the new chord, and then playing our little rhythm pattern up there around the D chord. So the lick in this case I'm playing is 5 to 7 on the D, hammer on, then up to 5 on the G string, and then that little slide again, 8 to 7 on the G string, back down to 5, and then 7 on the D string, and then those two notes together, 5 on the D with 6 on the G, slide down to 4 and 5, giving us our chord change, like so. So now let's just go from our original lick over the A chord and then into this additional lick taking us into the D chord, and just see in your ear, hear in your ear rather, how this spells out the chord change. And then back into that original lick over the A chord. So that's great when we want to get to the D chord, but what about when we want to get to our 5 chord of E? What do we do? Well, we can use this exact same shell voicing technique, but now instead of coming down 1 fret to get to our D7 chord notes, we can come up 1 fret and get to notes from an E7 chord. So we've got a G sharp at the 6th fret and a D at the 7th fret, the 3rd and a 7th from an E7 chord. So sliding from here to here with just these two notes gives us the movement from A7 to E7. So we could add that to the exact same lick as we were just using. And this time it brings us up into the E7 chord. So for D7 and then E7, using that exact same rhythm pattern now at the 12th fret. So super slowly, let's put all of this together. So whenever we're approaching an A chord, we're going to use our original lick, and then the rhythm pattern, and then the variation with that little bend, rhythm pattern, and now we're coming up to the D chord, so our lick with the shell voicing movement on the end, sliding down into the D7 and then up to the 10th fret for the rhythm pattern around the D chord there. Now back to the A with that original lick, rhythm pattern, and now into the E chord, so we can use that same lick we used over the D, but this time sliding up 1 fret to target the E7 and then up to the 12th for the rhythm pattern, and then ending with our original lick, varying the rhythm a little bit there maybe, rhythm pattern again, and then maybe ending with a jazzy kind of chord like that. So 7 on the D, 6 on the G, 7 on the B, 7 on the high E, kind of an A13 chord, but we can approach that from 1 fret above, B flat 13 into A13 always a nice way to end the blues. Or of course we could, once we get to here, start going round the pattern again with that original lick. Now up to tempo, here's the full 12 bars.